I had another opportunity in front of me. It was a great role. It was an offer. It was 2 seasons. That's guaranteed money. It was just there. And I was like, I'm doing that. And
As you
simple,
should.
right?
Yeah.
And then my team, my manager who's here, they all came to me and said, well, we have this other project. We think you should read it. I don't need to read anything. I'm doing this here. And so about, I don't know, maybe a week or something passed by. I didn't even read it. And so they were on me. They were on me. They were on me. And so I finally read it. And I understood why they would not allow me to let it go. And which is just on a sidebar, that's why it's so important to have a good team, because it wasn't just about the money for them. They know me. They knew what would be best for me, what I would like in the long run. And it was just never about a check. And I appreciated that, because that is easy money for them as well. And they said no.
Okay, well, this is very exciting because unlike, sometimes you get to the end of a season, whether it's the first season or the fifth season, and then you go to the next season, they jump ahead like 6 months. Not here. This picks like right up, like no time has passed. If anything, you fill in the blanks. So I want to start with you, Raamla. Like, what informed your approach to doing the second season of Reasonable Doubt? What were you most excited to dive into?
Well, I was most excited to dive into, how the Jax and Chanel dynamic would be in season 2. Especially we saw tidbits in season 1 of their friendship. And we saw some of kind of a little bit of behind the scenes with Chanel's husband and what, they were going through. So, we know that Jax is an amazing lawyer and, she has these friends in this life and she just got over this trauma. And it seems like the minute that she takes a breath, her best friend calls her and says, I killed my husband. So I was excited to see how Jax was going to navigate being this amazing lawyer, but also being, having to support her friend during the worst time of her life.
So Emayatzy, this is still a new season, even though it's a continuation of the story from the first season of sorts, but it's still new season, new challenges, new arcs. What informed your approach when it came to playing Jax in season 2?
Well, I knew, where we were coming from. She was in a place where she was, broken, having experienced that trauma, with Damon in the first season. So I knew that going into season 2, I was going to get to experience a new Jax, a different Jax, from a different perspective. She's a woman who is very, she's always in control. She always has it together. She knows what's going on. She knows what's going to happen before it happens. And that's not where she is in the second season, so she's kind of finding herself again, doing a lot of that inner work. And so I knew that was the starting place. What does that look like? How does that look, in her workplace, with her friends, with her family, within her marriage? What does it look like for Jax to not be in control, to not have all of the answers? Who is she? So that was my starting point.
So also, throughout the course of season 1, I got to watch the first 2 episodes of season 2. Daniel's, he's obviously it's a serious show, but there's a little bit of a I would say slight comic relief element to Daniel and what he brings to the dynamic with the characters. What's it like balancing the drama with a little bit of, I would say, humor?
It is actually a very heavy responsibility, one that I take very seriously. And I really say that because, as a minority actor, we are often given that role in the job opportunities that we're offered. And when I initially got a role like this, I might have been a little resistant. My manager's here. He probably knows that I might have been resistant to that kind of thing. But the show, Raamla, and the character of Daniel was a real wake-up call for me to remember that it's not about me, and it's about the story. And when the story is brilliantly told as Raamla does it, and beautifully acted as Emayatzy does it, I fell into line right away and understood what my responsibility is to bring a little bit of light into the world of Jax. And this show shows you every crack, we get under every layer of Jax. And in that in some of these layers, you do find a little bit of light, and that is a very needed element in her life. So when I fully embraced that aspect of it, I was able to not only love Daniel more, but I was able to love that aspect of myself that Daniel brought out, and do it confidently because I knew what I was what I was being tasked to do.
You know, I want to ask Raamla, when it came to creating the show and to, you know, creating these characters, what made this cast like perfect? Like who were you looking for? What made Emayatzy the perfect Jackson, and so on from there?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, there was, you know, we had a lot of great actors come and audition for the show, and it was, you know, it was like some of them could do the smart and the sexy, but not the funny. Some could do, you know, 2 out of 3, and I was like, I'm not feeling like Jax, and Emayatzy came in, and one thing, you know, especially since it's SAG and we're talking about acting, you know, acting is reacting, and one thing that Emayatzy did that was really different from pretty much any other actor was when, you know, we had someone read with her, and when she was just listening and hearing, she was reacting with her body, like you could feel. We had the Damon scene that she did, and she played the silence. She played the intensity and the emotion in her silence and her body movement, and I was like, that's different. Like that's someone I want to watch.
Yeah.
You know, that's someone that even when they're not speaking, when she's not just relying on the words, and also Emayatzy embodies kind of this like everyday kind of girl. She's, you know, she's light, she's funny. I mean, even in real life, you know, we hang out. And so,
We do.
you know, and so, you know, she likes to laugh and have fun, and I wanted a character who was smart but could be light and could be funny. You know, because I think sometimes as women we have to be serious if we have a good job, or we have, you know, but if we're funny, we're stupid and ridiculous. So I wanted to show their different elements of who a woman could be, and I felt like Emayatzy played each part of the very confidently.
So Emayatzy, I first movie I saw that Emayatzy was in was the movie Middle of Nowhere, directed by Ava DuVernay, Sundance, you know, 12 years ago. That's how we met. But when you see, like when you were first diving into the first season of Reasonable Doubt, and you look at this character and you're reading this character, Jacqueline, and the conversation you have with Raamla, like what made you just go, holy moly, this is an actor's dream to play a character like this?
Well, you know, I think first, let me just start with how this even all came together for me, especially, you know, being in a room, you know, full of actors. I had another opportunity in front of me. It was a great role. It was an offer. It was 2 seasons. That's guaranteed money. It was just there. And I was like, I'm doing that. And
As you
simple,
should,
right?
Yeah.
And then my team, my manager who's here, you know, they all came to me and said, well, we have this other project. We think you should read it. I don't need to read anything. I'm doing this here. And so about, I don't know, maybe a week or something passed by. I didn't even read it. And so they were on me. And so I finally read it. And I understood why they would not allow me to let it go. And which is just on a sidebar, that's why it's so important to have a good team, because it wasn't just about the money for them. They know me. They knew what would be best for me, what I would like in the long run. And it was just never about a check. And I appreciated that because that is easy money for them as well. And they said no. So yeah, about a week went by, I read it and I said, oh my God, this right here, I was tripping. Thank y'all for, you know.
Thank you. I'm going to thank them too.
Yes, thank them too, Raamla. And the other thing was, I had to go in and fight for this. You know, that one was guaranteed. It was an offer. That was that. And this one was, you had to come in here. You have to come in. You have to test. And it was a moment for me just as an actor at that point where I was in my career, where honestly, I was like tired. I'm like, I don't feel like fighting right now. I have this right here and I don't feel like fighting. And again, my team, they were like, Emayatzy, we hear you, we understand. It's even giving me goosebumps thinking about it again, because they just did not let me fall. They didn't let me settle. And Jeff, I love you for that. And yeah, and so I said, you know what? Okay. They want me to fight for it. I'm gonna fight for it. I'm gonna fight for it.
And you did, yeah. And to Emayatzy's point, I did. It was very important to me that any actress who was interested in this role had to read. And I mean, we had some, names on the table, and names that were like you could give an offer to, and I was like, you got to read. And we had some names who did come in to read, but to me, I was like, I can't. Jax is the show, and I'm sorry. I just felt like I hadn't seen this character before, and I really needed to believe who was coming in and could do this. And when in the script, she's fighting with her husband, the emotional affair, the friends. There's so many different layers, and I wanted someone who'd come in and attack it. And for me, I don't like cutting around performances. If I can stay on a take, if I can stay on a performance, I want to do that. And also not just for me as the showrunner, but also like to me, I love being on set. I love watching the actors bring the words to life. So I want to put that on screen and be on that take as long as possible if I can.
I'm just real curious, like when that was going on with you. I mean, this is really fascinating. What were the conversations that you had with Emayatzy about like what you are perfect for this role? I mean, you have to fight for it, but you have all the complexities because Jax she's got her stuff together, but not completely. She's figuring it out. Her life gets worse before it gets better. I mean, it's an actor's dream. But what were those conversations like?
I mean, we had a, initial meeting, and I was like, she seems cool. I can't deal with difficult people. So it's, so I also needed to know, honestly, I need to know, like, is someone who shows up, does work, like that's important too. Sets a good, you're number one on the call sheet. You have to set a good, mood and vibe on set. I was lucky. Carrie, worked on Scandal. Carrie's was a fantastic number one. So she set a tone of, it makes a difference coming to work. So, I was like, okay, that's step one. Emayatzy seems cool, great. So now let's see. We did a Zoom, and she had to do 3 scenes. She did the first scene she did, then her Zoom went out. Her internet went out. After she did the first scene, internet went out, and we were like, okay, let's try to get her back. But I said, I'm gonna be honest, happy to see the other 2 scenes, but she's got it.
Wow.
I knew, I was like, she's Jax.
Yep. Trust your
And she came back and just, solidified that. But yeah, I get emotional thinking about it, but it was amazing.
Wow. By the way, that's my nightmare, doing a live thing and having your internet go out on the Zoom.
Imagine how I felt on the other end of that. I'm like, oh my God, you blew it. You blew it.
Wait, did it, like the moment it happened, you're like, what the hell? Yeah. I've been there. We've all been there. But this is, even though it starts with Jax, it is an ensemble, a true ensemble. So my question for you is like, when you're rehearsing, you're prepping, you're remembering your lines, and you're thinking about your approach and what you're doing, going to film that day, but then you go to the set, you're around your fellow actors, you're around your showrunner. How does that elevate your performance? How does that bring something out of you that surprised even you?
Well, part of my prep this year, actually, I hired a coach.
Oh.
Because when you're talking about elevating, I watched season 1. I said, I need to elevate because look what Emayatzy did. So I did hire a coach, mainly because I really did take it seriously. And even though Daniel's providing a lot of light and humor, I didn't want to go in with an empty toolbox. I wanted to come in with a full toolbox, be willing to toss it out, but I just wanted to be ready for you, ready for the show, ready to be sparring with someone like Emayatzy. To be very honest, I couldn't go in unprepared. So that was part of the prep.
Yeah.
But then I go to work, and the grace that Raamla has shown me in allowing me to have freedom in this character, because I know you, like any brilliant writer, like Aaron Sorkin, want things very specifically. You write every punctuation word to be crafted exactly as you need it to be, but you gave me the freedom, and you said, Tim, you do it the way you think it's going to work the best. And when you opened up those gates for me, it healed a lot of like the pain that I felt in this industry, and it gave me a lot of joy. So when I came to work, it was about not really about comedy, but about, can I make Jax laugh? Can I bring the light to her life in this atmosphere of being surrounded by a bunch of, stuffy white men lawyers and stuff. Why did Jax hire someone like Daniel who dresses loud and bright? And why did she hire Crystal? Why are the two of us compatriots in this office? And so all this stuff is I have to dissect and realize, you know what? Like a person playing a bad guy, the number one rule is they don't know that they're a bad guy. Right. So with Daniel, who's funny, a little nerdy, he doesn't think he's nerdy. He's not trying to be funny. He's just proud to be who he is, and he's passionate. Right. And so it's just about bringing that passion to whatever situation that Raamla puts me in.
Yeah, and you do it brilliantly.
Yes, you do.
I also, I'm not a comedy writer. I like to add some comedy, but I will go to Tim and I'll just say, what would you say? And I end up, putting in the cut. And a lot of times, like even with the other characters, there are, I write stuff, but sometimes, like there are things conversations that they have between them, natural moments. And I leave it in the show because it's funny and it's real, especially with the Ladera ladies, you guys riff up and say something. And I'm just laughing. I'm like, oh my God, please put that in. That's so
Well, you see, that brings up a really good point. When you start filming a show, when you start filming season 1 of a show, you're finding your way, you're figuring out what works, what doesn't, how the dynamic of the characters and the actors really fall into a rhythm. But when you get into it and you start to hit your stride, actors often talk about, in series TV anyway, ownership, if you will, of a character. So how long into filming Reasonable Doubt, if ever, did you start to feel like ownership of Jax where you could have a conversation, say, I think she would say this instead of that? Did those conversations ever come up?
Yeah, definitely. Especially here in the second season, you're coming in with, with new directors each episode and everything. You are more comfortable with the character. You are more familiar with things that she would say or, how she would do particular things. You just have a bit more agency over the character and her world. And it allows you the confidence, affords you the confidence to be able to go and say, hey, you know what? I don't think she would do it quite this way. And so, yeah, that is something that you don't even realize is there, but it just makes sense because you have lived with this character for so long. So if I read something or if I get a direction or something that just feels a bit off, I can trust my instincts in that. And that's something where Raamla has empowered us to be able to trust our instincts in that because we've all lived with these characters. And that's why it does start, with your showrunner as well, giving you that freedom and that space to be able to do that.
But also, like when you get into, start to develop this bond, feel like a family, if you will, and then you start season 2 and you got someone new into the mix like Morris Chestnut. I love his entrance, by the way.
The best, one of the best, right?
Great entrance. You go next episode. But how did that sort of shake things up a little for season 2 of the show?
Well, I think, what's great in kind of what Tim was talking about is like, Morris' character comes in and, is a bit of a foil for Jax's character. But, I was like, what would someone like that think of, Daniel or, how would Crystal feel? And so it became fun to think about like what his relationship would be. And then it was, in season 1, we see like, Jax is like, Daniel, like whatever. But what if like the coolest guy in the room also thought Daniel was the coolest guy in the room, and they have such a fun dynamic, and also with Crystal, and it kind of shakes things up, and also it's it's unexpected. You think Morris, Morris Justin's not gonna want to be friends with this guy or whatever it is, and they just have this like honest friendship, and it's really funny.
Yeah, that smile, that confidence is like right there from the moment you're like, oh, this is going to be good. But you're talking about what informs your approach, how you're going to play a certain scene. Before you get to that, you have to remember your lines. You have to, like at the end of the first season, your closing argument, I'm like, how the hell did she remember that? So that's my question. How do you remember? What is your trick? What is your trick? How do you remember your lines?
A large part of it happens when I'm preparing preparing, when I'm, trying to figure out what I'm doing in a scene, And so in doing that, I do that line by line. What am I trying to get out of this scene? And that helps me in the memorization of it, because it's hard for me to just memorize it by rote, just take the monologue and memorize it. I can't get it that way. It has to be connected to something. So when I break it down to, okay, what am I trying to get out of this line? Why am I saying what I'm saying? Then it helps me with the memorization. Yeah.
What's your trick?
I don't think there's a trick. If it's written well, it's actually quite
That
easy
part.
to memorize.
That part.
If it's written well, it's easy to memorize.
And that is an answer that comes up quite a bit. If the writing is great, you don't have to memorize that hard. It just, but yeah.
I mean, I thank you. I appreciate that. But I produced a lot of episodes of TV, like on, Scandal, Little Fires, and I was on set a lot. And so what happens is that when you're on set a lot, you are asked why you're saying that, like, why an actor is like, so why am I saying this? Why? And sometimes you're not the person who wrote it, so you don't have the intentionality, you don't know, and so you're trying to figure out. And so with creating my own show, I always, even with the writers, and I talk to them about it, when I write something, I say, can you defend that line? Do you know why that character said something? So anything that I write, I know why the character is saying that. I can defend the line, and I think about what would the actor ask me on set, because if I can't answer that question, then the line is wrong. And what happens is that then on the other side is that if Emayatzy or Tim or someone comes up to me and wants to change the line, I at least know the intentionality, and I know that if they change it to something that is better for them to memorize or say, or just with ease, and I know what the intentionality is, I usually I'm like, yeah, sure, because I know that what I want it to be is still there. So yeah, say that version, fine.
When I was watching the first episode of the first season, before I, and I'm like, okay, it's a legal drama, that's my jam. I love stuff like that, but it's not really illegal. I mean, it is, but it's much more than that. But then as I'm watching the first episode, I'm like listening to these people talk, and they drop the F-bomb, and they, get a little raunchy when they're talking to their friends. In other words, they talk like we talk. So I want to ask, like, what made you go really just make it genuine dialogue?
I hate watching television and feeling the writing, like feeling that someone just wanted something clever to say. And I like I said, I like being on set, and I like to be there, and I feel bad watching the actors trying to make something work. And even sometimes I'm on set and I'm watching these wonderful actors try to make something that I said work, and I'm like, that don't work. So can we I need to change it to something else, because you feel that, and the audience feels it. The audience is smart, and they want to feel like, they know these people. And so for me, I'm not trying to, the stories and the plots are where, to me, the clever stuff comes in. But I'm just trying to create people. So I just write the way people talk. If I think someone would say something, I don't actually try to write against that. I actually just write the thing that the person would say.
Into it,
Yes.
yeah. What was your take when you first read the first script and you just saw, Jack's, classy, professional, but she likes to, drop the bomb.
That was my favorite part about it. The messiness.
Yeah.
How messy she was, how real she was, her friendships, what's happening in her marriage. Just all of it. The love scene, that scene in the car, I think that was in the pilot with her and Lewis. I was like, oh, this is what we doing. And I love that, because we don't get to do that often, and still get to see this strong, powerful Black woman still have a sex appeal and, and the charisma and everything without it, being judged in some kind of way, with her sexuality or something. And so I really looked forward to being able to take that on as a challenge, and just as an added, bonus that she gets to, this is real life, these are real people, that I've seen, who are just living life, and you have these things that happen, so be able to to be able to bring that to a character was a wonderful challenge.
I thought it was refreshing that people actually talk like we talk. But because, you're into what certainly we're into now, season 2, like when did you start to feel, or maybe it was back in season 1, when did you start to feel that you were all starting to hit your stride and know, the rhythms of the cast and, so that I guess less prep is not a poor choice of words, but when did you start to feel that the show was, and the characters and the actors were hitting their stride?
I mean, for me, there was a moment very early on in season 1, probably during episode 1, where I was talking with Angela Grovey, who plays Crystal, just talking about my story, how I got there, my audition story, how I wanted to quit, but then this job happened, and all that kind of stuff, just harping. And we're talking, and then along comes our number 1, and she says, "Oh, I want to share my testimony." So when she said that, I was at, I love you, because it was just so real of you that you, as a number 1, and I hope I'm talking to a lot of future number 1s on the call sheet here. I mean, Emayatzy, the fact that you could have done another show, but you were always made to be a number 1 and to lead this show, because the way you do it is incredible with what you balance in life. She has like a running challenge with anybody in our crew that she can beat them in a foot race, and she has been challenged, and she is undefeated. And this is sometimes
it's embarrassing for them. They were like, especially the guys, like they're
Yeah.
like, yeah, like I ran track, and she just like, okay, she's in a skirt and like barefoot. Just dusts them.
Yeah, dusts them. And this is after working maybe 10, 12 hours sometimes.
Yeah, she's like barely out of breath. She's like, light work, and then she like goes
Yeah.
back, and then she like does a scene, and
Yeah.
she's like crying, and you're
Yeah.
like, okay.
I'll just say that moment reminded me what a blessed and safe space I was in with the people that had been gifted to be surrounded with. So that was a moment that I won't forget. I don't know if you remember that one, but yeah.
I would love to hear what it was like to film the scene that we just saw in this episode tonight, the counseling session. Because that felt like, full disclosure, I've been there and I'm like, yep, I know that feeling. Yeah.
I mean, it felt very real. I've been in counseling as well, and I'm like, oh, okay, you know what? I know where I gotta go, to get there. And I really just think that for these 2 characters, Jax and Lewis, being in counseling with everything that's happened, and everything they're trying to get through, you guys are going to enjoy watching that throughout the season, right, Raamla? Because
yes.
the counseling stuff, it's just so realistic, and I could definitely just relate to that a lot.
Yep. What was it like to film to film that scene?
I mean, it's I think it's like a 7.5 page scene. It's a pretty long scene. It was like the whole day shooting. I kind of, I liked writing plays in theater, so I just wanted to watch them act, really, and I think, you see the cut, and there's probably like just 40 seconds of them in a 2-shot just acting and being,
I love stuff like that, by the way. You're just watching actors act. Great. With the last couple minutes we got some questions submitted from the audience. This one is from Katrina Love, who asks, what was the most challenging part of bringing your character to life? And how did you prepare, starting with you?
The most challenging part about bringing Jax to life, I think, was just making sure that I was being true and authentic to who she is, the character that Raamla had written, without any judgment about the choices that she was making, any of the questionable choices and how she was doing them, without making judgments that would then put me against her in being able to play her, I think that was just the biggest challenge, because, when you first are introduced to a character and you have opinions on, why they've done something, it can put a block between you and the character. So that's generally always a challenge when I have a character who is not perfect, who is perfectly flawed. You find yourself, even if it's not at the beginning, it may not be the first script, or maybe it's in episode 4, and it's like, oh, what? Why was she? You know what I mean? All of that, so allowing yourself to not judge who she is and just live through it.
What's your take? How was the most challenging aspect? How did you prepare?
I would say my answer is actually the same for Daniel, is not to have judged him. And I'm so glad I didn't judge him as like a nerd, because that's the wall I saw. But because Asians get cast as nerds often. But I had to define that as, what is nerd? What is a nerd? I think it's just unbridled passion, right? So how can I bring that passion and not judge the character was really my big and first hurdle to get into Daniel. And after that, it was all love and joy.
I just wanted to say that I when I'm on set, I pick up, and even just looking at footage, if I can't be on set for some reason, I pick up things the actors did. And in the pilot, when Daniel was giving, Jack's information, Tim started organizing the pins on her desk in this very specific way that wasn't in the script. And it was so nuanced, and it informed me on his character and kind of who he wanted to portray. But I was specific with, I wanted Daniel to be Korean. It wasn't just Asian. It was Korean, and it was because I wanted to be able to play up. There's a history in this city of between Blacks and Koreans, and what that would mean. And I wanted to be able to have be able to use that in some ways. And I did in season 1, when he goes to kind of talk to the the Korean landlord and kind of deal with that racism. So and with Emayatzy, there's certain things that she does that now I can write in her nuances into the character. So it becomes kind of a dual, kind of rotating life into art into like life. That's really fun. So,
all right, last question comes from Christina Leno. Sorry, Christina, you're here and you are represented. Can you share acting advice that helped you become a better performer?
Acting advice that helped me become a better performer. I think one of the main things I would say is trusting your gut. When you go into the room, just believing that you are the answer. They don't know. Half the time they do not know. And I think early on in my career, I'm sure most of us do it. You feel like, okay, well, what are they looking for? You're changing your hair, you're changing your outfit. Okay, I think this is what this character looks like and this is what they're looking for, but you're doing it based on that and not who you are and how you would interpret this character. And so I've since learned that, I would go into rooms completely different from how I did in the beginning. And really just, this is my take. This is how I'm doing it. And this is the best way it works for me, and more often than not, that worked. Even if it doesn't lead to the job, you've made an impression with someone and they're going to call you for the next job or something, and just learning that it's not always about the job at times. You go in there and you make other kinds of relationships for future jobs or future things, So just trusting who you are and walking into rooms knowing that you are the answer. I remember, and I'll just be really quick. I remember some years ago, because I've always loved Angela Bassett, and I ran up to her one day after a Mary J. Blige concert, and I said, Angela, what advice would you give me as an actor?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And it was pretty crazy.
She freaked out? Did she?
She was like, she was getting into her car. It was really crazy. Now that I think about it.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Sorry. And she said, she took the time, she put her other leg out of the car, and she said, you know what? When you go in the room, just own it. And I remember thinking, that's nothing. Like, that's nothing. I wanted something else. So it took me some time, and I realized, oh, that is the answer. That is the answer. You have to own it. Be you. Trust that you are the answer. You are enough, and that will always be it. That'll always be it. Wow. I hope that's a good answer.
I just I just had this image of Angela Bassett. What about you? Acting advice.
I can't follow that, so I'll give you something that was a little more technical, which is every time I go on tape or enter a set, I will explore it. I will breathe my life into every corner of the space, or if I'm taping an audition, I will visualize the space. If I'm in an office, you need to be hearing the fax machine go off when you see my tape. So when I'm in a scene, when I get to the set, I do like to explore. I just like walk around, I touch things, I breathe into it, I just enter it so that it is not foreign to me once I become a part of the scene.
All right. So how excited are you for the rest of season 2? What can people expect without spoiling a thing?
That's one thing. I honestly just, kind of the upgrade of season 1. Like it's just, there's so much more. There's more, soap. There's more sexiness. We're exploring serious storylines as well. The actors obviously are, amazing, and so I think there's so much that's going to be great about this season. I did want to say one thing, just being on the other side of the table when actors come in, is that one thing you have to understand is that I really like what you said about coming in and owning the room, because as I've been on the other side where I'm the co-EP and I'm not the final decider, but I like an actor and someone else likes that other actor and they just happen to be the decider. So I know it's hard in this business not to take things personally, because you get rejected, and you're like, oh my God, what am I doing? But it's just subjective. It's not an indicator of who you are as a person, and you have to separate your ego from your talent and know that one day someone will look at you and say, yes, you did come in and own the room and you are the answer.
So, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Onyx Collective, on behalf of Hulu, on behalf of ABC Signature, make sure you start watching season 2. Well, the next episode after this one. But it does start this Thursday, August 22nd, with new episodes dropping every Thursday after that. Thank you so much for being here for the SAG-AFTRA Foundation Conversation.
Thank you, guys.
On Reasonable Doubt. Thanks to this amazing panel. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.